The training facility on Zyrus 7 was unlike any other in the galaxy. It wasn't just a survival academy, it was the Survival Academy. Aspiring leaders, soldiers, and explorers from across the Galactic Coalition came here to test their mettle against simulations designed to push even the hardiest beings to their limits. The school boasted a near-impossible graduation rate of just 3%, and only those who thrived in chaos could hope to earn its coveted certification. For humans, this was supposed to be a diplomatic gesture, a goodwill exchange between Earth and the Coalition. The Coalition wanted to test the adaptability of Earth's infamous Deathworlders, a species hailing from a planet categorized as a Class 12 Death World, the highest level in the Coalition's Planetary Danger Index. Earth's entry into interstellar politics had been recent, and their reputation for resilience was both feared and admired. Sending a delegation of humans to Zyrus 7 was seen as both a challenge and an experiment. When the human contingent arrived, the instructors were prepared to deal with overconfidence and excuses. They were not, however, prepared for a group of unassuming volunteers who seemed blissfully unaware of the Academy's difficulty. At the forefront was Captain Lisa Ace Carter, a seasoned pilot with a penchant for bending rules in all the right ways. Her sharp wit and easy smile masked a razor-sharp intellect that had seen her through more than a few near-death experiences. Beside her stood Samir Patel, an engineer whose ability to jury-rig solutions was practically legendary, and Elena Torres, a former Marine with a talent for spotting weaknesses in both opponents and plans. Rounding out the team was Caleb Jones, a botanist and survival enthusiast who claimed he'd always wanted to see if the galaxy's idea of extreme was actually extreme. The instructors greeted them with thinly veiled skepticism. Humans had a reputation for thriving in environments that destroyed other species, but Zyrus 7 wasn't just about physical endurance. It was a test of mental acuity, strategic thinking, and, above all, the ability to adapt under pressure. The team's enthusiasm was seen as misplaced optimism. The first test began in a controlled simulation. The room transformed into a dense jungle, its air humid and filled with the cries of unseen predators. The task was simple: retrieve a beacon located 3 kilometers away while avoiding hazards. The hazards turned out to be robotic drones equipped with tranquilizer darts and traps hidden among the underbrush. Lisa immediately took charge. "All right, standard formation. Elena, take point. Samir, monitor for traps. Caleb, keep an eye out for anything that looks like it wants to eat us." Elena smirked as she scanned the terrain with practiced precision. "Copy that, Captain. Let's see what these drones can do." Samir knelt near a particularly suspicious patch of moss, poking it with a stick. A net sprung up, snapping harmlessly into the air. "Oh, that's cute," he said, grinning. "These are supposed to scare us?" The instructors watched from the observation room, their expressions shifting from amusement to confusion. The humans weren't just navigating the course, they were enjoying it. Caleb even stopped to inspect a cluster of glowing fungi, pocketing a sample for later study. The drone's attacks were met with efficiency and humor, each ambush countered with quick thinking and teamwork. By the time the team reached the beacon, they were laughing and covered in dirt, but completely unharmed. One instructor, a Xylan with translucent skin that shimmered under the room's artificial light, shook their head. "They're not taking this seriously." "They will," another replied. "That was the easiest course. The next one will show them what true survival means." The second test involved a simulated desert environment. The humans were dropped into a scorching wasteland with limited supplies and a single goal: survive for 72 hours while finding a way to signal for extraction. The heat was intense, the sand seemed to stretch endlessly, and the only signs of life were the occasional venomous creatures lurking beneath the dunes. "Reminds me of Nevada," Lisa said as she adjusted her gear. "Except without the slot machines." Samir wiped sweat from his brow. "And with less oxygen." "Lovely." While most species struggled in the heat, the humans adapted quickly. Caleb identified edible plants hidden among the dunes, while Samir constructed a makeshift solar still to extract water from the sparse vegetation. Elena, ever vigilant, built a perimeter of traps to keep nocturnal predators at bay. The highlight of the exercise came on the second night when a simulated sandstorm swept across the desert. The humans had anticipated the event after noticing subtle shifts in the wind and constructed a makeshift shelter out of their supplies and nearby rocks. When the storm hit, they sat inside playing cards and waiting it out. The instructors watched in disbelief as the storm ended and the humans emerged, refreshed and ready to continue. "This isn't possible," one instructor muttered. "They're supposed to be struggling by now." The third and final test was meant to break them. The humans were dropped into a mountainous region filled with narrow cliffs, freezing temperatures, and aggressive simulated wildlife. The goal was to scale the highest peak and retrieve a data core before being overwhelmed by the environment. For the first time, the humans faced a challenge that pushed them to their limits. The cold was unrelenting, and the steep terrain tested their endurance. Caleb slipped on an icy ledge and had to be caught by Elena, while Samir's tools froze, making repairs difficult. Despite this, they pressed on, their camaraderie unwavering. "I'm not losing to a bunch of holograms," Elena grunted as she hauled Caleb back onto the ledge. "You're welcome," Caleb panted, grinning through chattering teeth. Lisa led the charge, her instincts honed by years of experience. When they encountered a simulated predator, a massive, snarling feline-like creature, they worked together to outsmart it. Caleb distracted the creature with a flare, while Elena and Lisa lured it into a narrow crevasse. Samir then triggered a small avalanche, sealing the creature inside. By the time they reached the summit, the humans were battered and exhausted but victorious. They retrieved the data core and signaled for extraction, collapsing into a relieved pile as the simulation ended. In the observation room, the instructors exchanged stunned glances. "They didn't just survive," one murmured. "They thrived." Back in the debriefing room, the humans were all smiles as they recounted their experiences. Lisa summed it up best. "You call this extreme? This is just another Tuesday for us." The evaluation moved into its next phase with an intensity designed to leave even the most capable recruits questioning their abilities. The humans were ushered into the second simulation chamber, their confidence seemingly unshaken. This time, the environment morphed into a sprawling underground labyrinth, its walls damp and covered in bioluminescent fungi that cast an eerie glow. The air was thick with humidity, and the sound of dripping water echoed endlessly. Somewhere deep within the maze, a hidden console awaited their discovery. They were tasked with activating it to disable a network of simulated security turrets, programmed to track and eliminate them. As the doors to the simulation closed, one of the instructors leaned toward the control panel, his spindly fingers tapping commands. "Let's see how far they get when the environment itself is working against them," he murmured. Inside the labyrinth, Lisa Carter surveyed their surroundings, her sharp eyes scanning every shadow. "All right, folks, no splitting up this time. Stick together and watch for traps. This place screams death by overconfidence." Samir Patel adjusted his headlamp and gave a mock salute. "Understood, Captain? No heroics, just survival." Elena Torres took point, her military instincts keeping her hyper-focused. She moved with calculated precision, her hand resting lightly on the hilt of her combat knife. Caleb Jones followed closely behind, marveling at the glowing fungi with a grin that earned him a glare from Elena. "Caleb," she muttered, "if you touch one of those and it explodes, I'm not hauling you out of here." "Noted," Caleb replied cheerfully, pulling his hand back. "But they're fascinating, don't you think? Look at the way they pulsate when we walk by. Could be a warning system. Or bait," Lisa added. "Keep moving." The first challenge came swiftly. A series of dark traps embedded in the walls activated as they passed, shooting projectiles with deadly accuracy. Elena spotted the faint seams in the stone just in time, throwing her arm out to stop the group. "Pressure-sensitive tiles," she whispered. "Step carefully." Samir crouched low, studying the mechanism. "Crude but effective. I can jam it if you give me a second." Lisa nodded. "Do it. Elena, keep watch. Caleb, don't touch anything." Samir worked quickly, using a multi-tool to disable the trap's mechanism. The group moved forward, their steps deliberate, each one mindful of the dangers that lay ahead. The labyrinth twisted and turned, its passages narrowing at points to force them to squeeze through tight spaces. As they pressed deeper, the security turrets activated. Sleek and menacing, the automated weapons emerged from concealed panels in the walls, scanning for targets. A single red beam traced across the corridor, forcing the team to flatten themselves against the damp stone. "Great," Caleb muttered. "Killer robots. Just what we needed." Lisa's mind raced as she analyzed the situation. "These turrets are motion-activated. If we stay out of their line of sight, we should be able to get past them." "Should?" Caleb asked nervously. "Would you rather I say definitely and lie?" Lisa quipped. "Elena, you're up. See if you can find a blind spot." Elena nodded, her movements cat-like as she crept along the wall. The others followed, their breaths held as they slipped past the first turret. The second, however, wasn't so easily fooled. It rotated unexpectedly, locking onto Samir's motion. "Down!" Lisa barked, shoving Samir behind a column just as the turret fired. The shot missed by inches, scorching the wall behind him. "Thanks," Samir said, his voice shaky. "That was close." "No problem," Lisa replied. "But we need a new plan. Caleb, got any ideas?" Caleb glanced at the turret, his mind working furiously. "I might. If I can distract it with a heat source, it might stop tracking us long enough to disable it." Lisa nodded. "Do it." Caleb rummaged through his pack, producing a flare. He lit it and tossed it into the corridor, the turret immediately swiveling to target the glowing light. While it focused on the flare, Samir darted forward, his tools in hand. With a few deft movements, he disabled the turret, its red light fading to black. "That's one down," Samir said, grinning. "How many more, you think?" "Too many," Elena muttered. "Let's keep moving." The labyrinth threw more obstacles at them, collapsible floors, spinning blades, and a section that flooded unexpectedly, forcing them to swim through icy water. Each challenge pushed the team to their limits, but they tackled every one with ingenuity and determination. When they finally reached the hidden console, it was guarded by a massive, insect-like construct with razor-sharp legs and glowing eyes. The simulated creature hissed menacingly, blocking their path. "Of course there's a boss fight," Caleb said, shaking his head. "Why wouldn't there be?" Lisa drew her weapon, her expression grim. "We've come this far. Let's not stop now. Ideas?" Elena observed the creature, her eyes narrowing. "It's fast, but it's too big for these narrow corridors. We could use the terrain against it." Samir nodded. "If we can lure it into one of those collapsing sections, we might be able to trap it." Lisa smirked. "I like it. Let's make it happen." The team sprang into action, using their combined skills to execute the plan. Caleb threw another flare to draw the creature's attention, while Lisa and Elena worked together to lure it toward the weakened section of the floor. Samir positioned himself at the console, ready to trigger the collapse. The creature lunged, its razor legs narrowly missing Lisa as she dove out of the way. Elena shouted, "Now, Samir!" Samir activated the console, and the floor beneath the creature gave way. It fell with a screech, its legs flailing as it disappeared into the darkness below. "Nice work," Lisa said, breathing heavily. "Now let's finish this." Samir quickly deactivated the turrets, and the labyrinth's lights dimmed as the simulation ended. The team stood in the now silent corridor, their exhaustion giving way to pride. Back in the observation room, the instructors watched in stunned silence. "How are they still smiling?" one asked, baffled. "They're humans," another replied. "That's what they do." The third test was designed to break the unbreakable. The environment was a chaotic fusion of terrain, a simulated planetary catastrophe combining earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and relentless storms. Towering cliffs crumbled under the strain of constant tremors, rivers of molten lava carved paths of destruction, and howling winds threatened to tear anything, and anyone, off the jagged terrain. The goal was simple in theory: survive long enough to secure an extraction signal from a beacon perched atop a collapsing mountain. As the simulation began, the human team stood at the base of the mountain, their faces lit by the ominous glow of lava streams snaking their way down its sides. The air was thick with ash, and the ground trembled beneath their boots. Lisa Carter scanned the terrain, her sharp eyes narrowing as she assessed the challenge. "Okay, this is officially insane," she said, her voice tinged with both frustration and determination. "But it's nothing we can't handle." Elena Torres adjusted her gear, her expression grim. "I've been through war zones less chaotic than this." "What's the plan, Captain?" Lisa smirked faintly. "Don't die. That's step 1. Step 2 is finding a way up that mountain without being cooked, crushed, or blown off the side." Caleb Jones knelt by a bubbling lava flow, his fascination undiminished by the danger. "The heat from this lava is intense. If we can find a way to harness it, we might be able to rig some kind of thermal boost to stabilize our equipment." Samir Patel groaned. "Caleb, we're trying to survive, not conduct a science experiment." "Survival is science," Caleb shot back, standing and brushing ash off his hands. "Everything we need is right here, it's just a matter of using it." Lisa held up a hand to cut off their banter. "Focus, team. The beacon's up there, and we're down here. Let's move." The ground shook violently as they began their ascent, loose rocks tumbling past them. The first obstacle came quickly, a massive chasm that had split the terrain in two. Lava bubbled at the bottom, sending waves of heat into the air. "We're not jumping that," Elena said flatly, eyeing the distance. Samir pulled a coil of rope from his pack, his mind already working. "We don't need to. If we anchor the rope to that rock formation on the other side, we can zipline across." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly are we anchoring it?" Samir grinned, pulling out a small launcher. "With this." He fired the device, the rope sailing across the chasm and embedding itself in the rock. With a few quick adjustments, the zip line was secured. One by one, the team crossed, each holding their breath as the lines sagged under their weight. Once across, the ground erupted behind them, a geyser of molten rock shooting into the air. Caleb stumbled, barely catching himself as the heat singed his boots. "Note to self," he muttered. "Lava bad." The climb grew steeper, the terrain more treacherous. Thunder rumbled overhead, and jagged bolts of lightning lit up the sky. A sudden landslide sent a cascade of boulders hurtling toward them. "Get down!" Lisa shouted, diving behind a rocky outcrop. The team scrambled for cover as the debris thundered past. Elena pulled Caleb out of the path of a falling rock just in time, her breathing heavy. "You owe me one," she said. Caleb grinned, despite the situation. "I'll bake you a cake when we get out of this." The storm intensified as they pressed on, rain mixing with ash to create a slick, treacherous surface. Visibility was almost non-existent, the beacon's faint glow their only guide. Lisa called a halt when they reached a narrow ledge, her voice barely audible over the wind. "We need a new plan," she said. "This path is too unstable. One wrong step, and we're done." Samir squinted into the storm, his mind racing. "If we can rig a pulley system, we could climb straight up instead of following the ledge." "With what?" Elena asked, her tone sharp. Samir held up a length of reinforced cable. "We have tools. And I spotted an outcrop about 30 meters up. If we can anchor the cable there, we can make it." Lisa considered the idea, then nodded. "Do it. Elena, cover him. Caleb, see if you can find anything we can use as counterweights." The team worked quickly, every second feeling like an eternity. Samir scaled the jagged rock face with Elena guiding him from below, her weapon ready to deal with any unexpected threats. Caleb improvised counterweights from fallen debris, while Lisa kept watch for signs of further instability. As they ascended, the ground beneath them gave way, the ledge crumbling into the abyss. Caleb barely managed to grab the cable, his fingers slipping as the others pulled him to safety. "That was too close," he said, panting. "I'm starting to miss the desert." The beacon was finally within reach, perched on a precarious rock spire at the mountain's peak. But the final stretch was guarded by a massive, mechanical guardian, a simulated creature resembling a cross between a serpent and a scorpion, its tail armed with a glowing stinger. "Of course," Lisa muttered. "Because climbing through a collapsing volcano wasn't hard enough." The creature lunged as they approached, its tail striking the ground with explosive force. The team scattered, each one narrowly avoiding the attack. "We can't fight it head-on," Elena shouted. "It's too fast." "Then we don't," Lisa said. "We distract it." Caleb's eyes lit up. "I've got an idea. That thing's tail looks volatile. If we can trick it into hitting one of those lava geysers." "Boom," Samir finished, nodding. "I like it." The team moved in unison, baiting the creature with calculated movements. Caleb threw a flare to draw its attention, while Elena and Lisa positioned themselves near a geyser. As the creature lunged again, its tail struck the boiling lava, triggering a massive explosion. The shockwave knocked them all off their feet, but the creature was gone, its remains scattered across the terrain. Lisa wasted no time. "Samir, get the beacon. Everyone else, secure the area." Samir sprinted to the console, his hands flying over the controls. The beacon activated with a sharp tone, its light piercing through the storm. "We're done," Samir said, grinning. "Extraction signal sent." The simulation ended abruptly, the storm and lava fading into nothingness. The team stood on solid ground once more, battered but triumphant. In the observation room, the instructors watched in stunned silence. "They should have broken," one murmured. "No one makes it through that." "They didn't just survive," another said, their tone tinged with disbelief. "They thrived." Back on the simulation floor, Lisa turned to her team, a tired but satisfied smile on her face. "Not bad, guys. Not bad at all." The lights of the simulation chamber dimmed as the team was escorted into the final test. Unlike the previous environments, this one wasn't designed to mimic a single, hostile biome. Instead, it was a sprawling hybrid, a patchwork of extreme terrains fused into a single arena. Dense jungles bled into barren deserts, towering cliffs gave way to icy wastelands, and active volcanoes loomed over raging oceans. This was the ultimate test, a culmination of every lesson the Academy sought to instill. Captain Lisa Carter glanced around as the chamber's walls shimmered, finalizing the chaotic environment. "Well," she said dryly, "it looks like someone couldn't decide on their favorite flavor of disaster." Samir Patel adjusted his pack, his expression skeptical. "If this is dessert, I'd hate to see what they serve for breakfast." Elena Torres knelt by a patch of jungle foliage, her sharp eyes scanning the area for threats. "Whatever this is, it's not just about surviving anymore. They want us to prove we can handle anything." Caleb Jones, ever the optimist, grinned. "Good thing we're great at proving people wrong." A mechanical voice echoed through the air, calm and clinical. "Objective: reach the central tower and disable the beacon. Warning: hostile elements will adapt to counter your progress. Time limit 3 hours. Adapt?" Lisa repeated, her brow furrowing. "That's new. It means the obstacles are going to get worse the better we handle them," Elena said grimly. "They're testing if we can think ahead of our own instincts." Lisa nodded, her mind already working. "All right, team. This is it. Stay sharp, stick together, and let's show them why Deathworlders don't play by the rules." The team moved out, navigating the maze-like terrain with practiced precision. The first challenge came swiftly, a sudden sandstorm that roared across the desert segment, reducing visibility to zero. The winds carried razor-sharp particles that tore at their suits. "Into the jungle!" Lisa shouted over the howling winds. "We need cover!" They sprinted toward the tree line, dodging falling debris as the storm intensified. Once inside, the air grew oppressively humid, and the sound of chittering filled the dense foliage. Massive, insect-like creatures scuttled through the undergrowth, their glowing eyes locked onto the intruders. "I hate bugs," Samir muttered, pulling out a makeshift flamethrower he'd cobbled together during the second test. "Let's see if they're flammable." The first wave of creatures lunged, their mandibles snapping. Samir's flames roared to life, driving the swarm back. Elena picked off stragglers with precise shots, while Caleb scanned the trees for an exit. "There!" he shouted, pointing to a narrow pathway winding uphill. "That should lead us out." They pushed through the jungle, the insects in pursuit. At the path's summit, the terrain shifted again, this time to an icy plateau. The sudden drop in temperature was jarring, their breath turning to mist as the wind howled around them. Samir's flamethrower sputtered and died, its fuel frozen solid. "Figures," he muttered, tossing it aside. The icy expanse was dotted with deep crevasses, their jagged edges hidden beneath layers of snow. As they moved cautiously forward, the ground trembled. A massive, serpentine creature burst through the ice, its scales glinting like shards of glass. "Run or fight?" Elena asked, her weapon trained on the beast. Lisa's eyes narrowed. "Neither. These things hunt by vibration. Move slow and spread out." The team obeyed, their steps deliberate as they navigated the treacherous ice. The serpent coiled and struck, its massive jaws snapping inches from Caleb, who froze mid-step. "Any bright ideas, Captain?" Caleb whispered, his voice shaking. Lisa glanced at a nearby overhang, its icicles precariously perched. "Samir, can you trigger a collapse?" Samir nodded, pulling out a compact detonator. "Give me a second." "Make it quick," Elena muttered, her weapon still trained on the serpent. Samir planted the device and detonated it just as the serpent lunged again. The overhang collapsed in a cascade of ice, burying the creature beneath tons of frozen debris. The team wasted no time, moving quickly to the next segment. The final stretch brought them to a volcanic ridge overlooking the ocean. Rivers of lava crisscrossed the terrain, and the air was thick with ash. At the ridge's peak stood the central tower, its beacon glowing ominously. "Of course it's at the top," Samir said, shaking his head. "Why wouldn't it be?" Elena scanned the ridge. "It's too exposed. We'll be sitting ducks if anything's waiting for us." "That's why we don't wait," Lisa said. "Move fast, cover each other, and don't stop until we reach the tower." They climbed the ridge, the heat searing through their suits. Automated drones emerged from hidden compartments in the rock, their weapons trained on the team. "Drones!" Caleb shouted, ducking behind a boulder. Elena returned fire, her shots precise but limited by the intense heat. Samir used the terrain to his advantage, rerouting lava flows to create temporary barriers. Caleb rigged a makeshift EMP from his remaining tools, disabling several drones in one blast. Finally, they reached the tower. Lisa led the charge, her heart pounding as they breached the control room. The beacon's controls were encased in a translucent shield, its energy fluctuating wildly. "How do we shut it down?" Elena asked, wiping sweat from her brow. Lisa examined the console, her mind racing. "It's rigged to overload if tampered with. We need to redirect the energy instead of cutting it off." "Redirect it where?" Samir asked. Lisa grinned. "The lava flows. Let's give this mountain a meltdown." With Caleb's help, Lisa rerouted the beacon's energy output, channeling it into the surrounding volcanic systems. The ground shook violently as the lava surged, consuming the tower and the remaining drones. "Time to go!" Lisa shouted. The team sprinted down the ridge as the volcano erupted, the beacon's destruction triggering the end of the simulation. The chaotic environment dissolved into the sterile walls of the training chamber, leaving the team panting but triumphant. In the observation room, the instructors stared at the monitors in stunned silence. "They did it," one whispered. "No one has ever completed all 4 phases." Another shook their head, disbelief etched across their alien features. "They didn't just complete it. They mastered it." Back on the simulation floor, Lisa turned to her team, a proud smile on her face. "We aced it, didn't we?" Caleb laughed, still catching his breath. "I think we just redefined extreme," Elena smirked. "Next time, let's find a challenge that doesn't try to kill us every 5 minutes." Samir chuckled. "Where's the fun in that?" As the team walked toward the exit, their heads held high, they knew they'd done more than pass a test. They'd proven that no matter how impossible the odds, humans would always find a way to rise above.